The Colt Python, a gun surrounded by controversy and mystique. Why is this gun so controversial, and why does it have such a loyal following amongst its supporters? This is what we'll look into in today's Fun with Guns, the Python Mystique. The Python was first manufactured in 1955. Colt needed something to compete with Smith & Wesson's in-frame series of revolvers, and the Python was just the ticket. Smith & Wesson already had the advantage in mass production at a reasonable cost, so Colt wisely decided to compete on quality rather than cost. The idea of the Python was to mass produce a gun with custom gun shop quality. As a result, the firearm was far more expensive than the comparable Smith & Wessons. To make the gun worth it, Colt ensured that it had a bank vault tight lockup, an excellent trigger pull, and was extremely accurate. But perhaps most of all, they made sure the gun was physically attractive. This helped sell pretty much anything, and guns are no exception. They put on the full lug barrel, which incidentally helped hold down recoil, and the ventilated rib sight. There are pros and cons to any gun, and we'll talk about those now. There are three pros that even Python detractors will admit to. First off, it is the most accurate gun of its type made. This is not to imply that other revolvers are not accurate. The Python simply has the accuracy edge. For most shooters, this is irrelevant, but for those who are extremely capable, it can be the difference between hitting or missing your game, or winning or losing a match. Secondly, the quality of its fit and finish by the manufacturer are better than any of its rivals. Thirdly, the gun can handle any .357 Magnum load without trouble, despite being several ounces lighter than a comparable Smith & Wesson in-frame. So what are the disadvantages of the Python? Well, for number one, it is substantially more expensive than its competitors. Today, a used Python in good condition runs well above $2,000, while comparable Smith & Wesson in-frame revolvers run about half of that. Secondly, that tight lockup comes at a cost. The gun has precision like a Swiss watch, but as a result, some of the parts are apparently a bit more delicate than its rivals. And thirdly, a Colt can only be properly repaired by a Colt-approved gunsmith or by Colt themselves. It takes special training to work properly on a Colt, and many gunsmiths have messed up Pythons and their actions by not properly fixing the gun. You see, the Python has a very small hand for rotating the heavy cylinder. It has an extremely precise fit, but as a result, extremely rapid fire or throwing back the hammer too quickly can wear the parts down prematurely. The result is that the gun goes out of time. Because of the type of recoil spring that the Colt uses, when you pull back on the trigger, you can occasionally feel something called stacking, which is the increasingly binding pressure against the trigger. Despite how smoothly the gun operates, many people do not like this. However, many Colt aficionados find the stacking a useful tool. They can slowly pull back on the trigger, and as they feel the stacking, they can use it as a tool to trip the trigger accurately. However, many people do not like this feature, and it does take some getting used to. This, of course, comes down to shooter preference. As we mentioned, the Colt is more expensive than its competitors, and that definitely counts as a disadvantage. For many shooters, the additional cost of the gun is simply not worth the increase in accuracy. This is because, as we mentioned, very few people can truly take advantage of the Python's accuracy advantage, but those who can find it worth the expense. The mystique of the gun comes about simply because it is not as common as other revolvers, and it has a reputation for being both beautiful and having an excellent action. When you combine this with its incredible, even legendary accuracy, the gun begins to take on a mythos. Combine this with its relatively high cost, it has conspired to keep the gun out of the hands of many shooters. And that, in my opinion, is what really gives it its mystique. The look helps, but the reputation it has is ultimately a fact that the gun is just out of reach of many shooters and now out of production, and that gives it its magical aura. Is it worth it? Does it deserve it? Well, beauty truly is in the eye of the beholder, so you'll have to answer that for yourself. This is Captain Max of Fun with Guns. Hope you've enjoyed this episode, and as always, please be safe.